Welcome my friends, this is Mountaincore Incorporated and you join me in new Syrup Vaults in Mountaincore. This is a game you may have heard of before under a different name, King Under the Mountain. It had a Kickstarter back in 2017 which was cancelled, another in 2019 which was successful, and since then it's ran into a few problems, much like my fort. So this game has gone into early access in the last few days. It's available on Steam. And I think this shows a tremendous amount of commitment from the developer, Rocket Jump, which I think is a solo dev endeavor. After 6 years, they could have pretty much just abandoned this and called it quits. Instead, they have made sure to get this project up and running to honor the commitments made in the Kickstarter, and there is a lot of activity going on in the Discord, which I will link below. I think yesterday 3 patches went out for this game. The dev is taking suggestions on board and is moving to get the various bugs and various issues fixed as quickly as possible. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a whirlwind tour of new Syrup Vaults to show you what it's like and to show you how some of the systems work. So how would we describe this game? It's like if Dwarf Fortress, Rimworld and Prison Architect had an orgy and a baby, but we're not entirely too sure who the parents are. There's inspirations from all 3. The Dwarf Fortress inspirations, of course, are quite plain, but then again, it's entirely possible to have a game inspired by Dwarf Fortress and never even know about the existence of Dwarf Fortress. If all you know is the likes of Rimworld and Prison Architect and Clanfolk, you could come up with something that is basically a Dwarf Fortress clone without ever hearing of it. But we can see from the people running around, the sprites, that we're taking very much a Prison Architect vibe, which is now a complete game. It's going into its sunset phase. It's perfect. It doesn't need any more updates. That game needs a lot of updates. And much like Prison Architect, how you build areas is you lay out rooms. So here we lay out a smithy, and then we have various different items that we can place in the smithy. And we have a lot of people falling asleep outside. I think those are the merchants. They are indeed. So here is one of the first rooms that you're going to get up and running. This is the masonry workshop, and you can see that as I hover around with my cursor, there's a bit of light, which I think is quite cool. The only thing that actually emits light in the game, other than the helmets of some of the miners, is lanterns that you build. So here is the masonry workshop, and the buildings, or the items that we can put in here, are the stonemason workbench, the ore crushing station, an import pallet, and an export pallet. And we can see that I have 2 workbenches. I have the ore crushing station, and then dotted around the place I have a ton of these import and export stations, or pallets. So what exactly do they do? So one of the most basic things that you can make is when an area is mined out, it will leave behind boulders, and these boulders can be broken down into blocks. How is that done? On our import pallet, we tell it to import rough stone boulders. On an export pallet, we tell it to export blocks. And that's basically it. A mason will pick up a stone boulder, so it'll be brought from storage. We'll pick up the stone boulder, take it to the workshop, we'll make blocks out of it, and we'll then put it on the export pile. And here we can see at the stonemason's bench all the things that can be made, including millstones and pipes. Now, as well as it being nighttime, so there's not a lot happening in new Syrup Vaults at the moment, I'm also quite late into the game. I've pretty much everything built, so there's not a lot of actual work being done in terms of, we'll say, mining out areas, breaking down boulders, and things like that. We can see here is our bedroom area. We can see, or we could just about see, that, again, very much that Prison Architect influence. Yes, that is a dead body in the wall. We can't get him out, and nobody's distressed anymore, so that's just, he's there to stay. He's part of the furniture now. He's part of the furniture. Over here is our kitchen, which is pretty much the only area that's actually still up and running. We can see that A variety of different things are being brought in. Fun golem mushroom meat, which I'm actually buying from traders. And the kitchen is quite a strange setup. In the kitchen we have these cauldrons, which use water, which is collected from the river and brought into the kitchen. It puts them into these cauldrons, and then puts in this case, boar, to make boar soup. And that will then be picked up, so we can actually see that somebody has just taken a cauldron from the feasting area. And what's going to happen is that at some stage, this cauldron is going to be picked up and put in place of that one. So you can see there's a blueprint. And this is something that catches players when they start playing for the first time. They're expecting that when you have this blueprint here and the same blueprint here, you're expecting that a cauldron will be built and a cauldron will be built. Instead, the cauldron from the kitchen gets taken to the feasting hall blueprint, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Or it'll get taken to a stockpile. The other thing that we have here in our feasting area is a beer tapper for barrels of beer. We'll get into that now in a moment. So here's the kitchen. Works a bit differently. There's no actual import or export of, we'll say, foodstuff. So here's carrots, here's boar meat. That just happens automatically if there's a cauldron. What the stockpiles are actually for is, we'd better move down to one of the more convoluted systems. Alcohol production. So there's buckets of water. Where do we even start here? Here is the malting station, which will take 4 barley, which is grown in a field, and convert it into 3 malt. That malt will then get taken. So here is there's the milled malt. Here is the barley malt import. And then, if I'm right, no, I'm not. One of these is the import. Here's the barley malt import. It's taken to this table. It's malted. It gets turned into barley malt. It then gets taken up to this table, this export, where it is milled here, if I am correct. 2 malt is milled into milled malt. It's then put on this stockpile, and it gets brought back to here, where it gets put into the iron mash tun, which takes milled malt and water to make wort. The wort is then put into the iron brew kettle alongside some hops to make hopped wort, and the hopped wort is then put into the iron fermentation tank to make beer, which is put into a barrel and taken to the barrel tapper. I think this is an overly convoluted process. And where does all the barley and the hops come from for that chaotically convoluted process? They come from our farms. So here are our farm plots, which again are actually rooms. So we pick a room, pick a farm plot, and pick the crop. You can see we have tons of barley seeds, tons of carrot seeds. We don't have many potato seeds because I've been selling them all. And I'll show you why and how that is in a moment. But here's our farms, and they are irrigated. So these are irrigation channels. And here we have a pump. And I have walls on either side of it and a roof, because at one stage the water pump would rust. I think that has been patched out. Rust is a thing in this game. Tools will rust. Anything left out in the rain will rust. Which again, I think is maybe not a system that I'm a huge fan of. All these different games are going to do their own different type of thing, and quite often they have a production chain. They'll have 1 or 2 production chains which are completely different to production chains in similar games. So food, for example, in Dwarf Fortress, doesn't matter what it is. You take it to the kitchen and it gets made into a meal and put in a stockpile. That's it. You're done with it. Here it's a bit different. And beer, if we compare the beer process to what we see in Rimworld, for example, much different. But what we have is a maple water wheel. This is generating 31 power. If I turn on the power view, I didn't have to build these. They had to be built, but they were just built automatically. They didn't take any resources or anything like that. Here is power connecting up to the water pump. And the water pump is drawing in water, and it is sending it through pipes, stone pipes. And it's connected up to this part of the irrigation channel, and it's feeding all these areas. At the moment, the irrigation can travel from, what I understand, 3 tiles. So these are all 3 tiles wide. So this is fully irrigated, and this is fully irrigated, and so is this. But if I was to put another one here, we'll say, it would do 2 things. First of all, it would merge these farms, so you can't really have rooms or stockpiles right next to each other without them merging. And the middle tile would not be irrigated. But this is what's providing us with all of our food. It's telling us that we have 800 vegetables at the moment. But it does weird things, like it includes hops, inedible hops, as a vegetable. So you do have to be a bit careful with that. Did my entire fort starve at one stage because we had 500 hops and I thought that that was vegetables? We had 500 vegetables, but they were all hops? What? No. No, that didn't happen to me. So the rooms have a system of import and export pallets. The goods that are needed to make things are imported, they're used, and then there are export pallets to hold the finished products, instead of being taken directly to a stockpile, we'll say like in Dwarf Fortress or in Rimworld. This is how you kind of select what's to be made. So instead of clicking on a forge and saying, I want 3 battle hammers, I've put a limit here of 4. I could put this limit up to 200, and no extra battle hammers would be made until I actually set one of these export pallets. So in Rimworld and Dwarf Fortress, you go to the station, you select how many items you want made, and they get dropped in place, and then they get taken away to a stockpile by somebody. So it's a different process here. This is our armory. And if we see our imports, the potential imports, arrowheads and bone arrows for the Fletcher station, which is right next to, right under this menu. Ingots and planks, which I'll be dealing with now in a moment, and leather. So you can also have a leather station in here. I don't actually have any way of getting leather. There are animals on the map that when you kill them, boars. So killed a few boars at one stage and we cut them up and got meat. So there are a couple of pieces of leather around the place. But the 2 to focus on are planks and ingots. So here in our forge, planks and ingots, ingots, planks and ingots, 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 all the ways down. So these are the militia items that we can build at the moment. So we pretty much just have these 2 imports being used, one for planks and one for ingots, and this can create a plethora of items: shields, swords, plate armor, battle hammers. We could create leather armor and crossbows and arrows. They could be done here at the Fletcher's station. I actually don't know where we'd get crossbows from. I know they can be imported. Maybe crossbows are done over here as well. So the first thing I want to point out there, and the point that I'm trying to make, or the thing that I'm trying to highlight, is the import and export pallets. It's an interesting system. I haven't seen it before in any other game. It's a bit of an evolution on what you get in Dwarf Fortress or Rimworld, or even Prison Architect, where when prisoners are told to construct license plates, they just construct them and dump them on the ground. Here is our trading depot, and we can see that we have a caravan, and there is a dead horse. This horse has been here for at least 7 or 8 years. I don't know what happened. I don't know how they got here. Hot code, work in progress. So this is the trading depot. I've put it outside, and then all the items started rusting. And I thought, do you know what, I'm not going to bother putting it inside, I don't care. But some of the coins rusted, some goods that I had here rusted as well. Again, I don't know if I like this rust system, if this is the kind of the thing that the game is going to go for. But the import and export pallets are here in the trade depot as well, and it is kind of difficult to get your head around, because again, we're not dealing with buy and sell orders. We have a selling pallet. that is currently selling potato seeds, because I had far too many of them. I'll turn that off for now. Here's a chest. It has coins in it. Coins which... I have no way of making silver coins, but I did make a lot of iron coins, if there are any still around here. So you can see their coins are made from ingots at the artisan workstation by artisans. So of course coins are in Dwarf Fortress as well, and there was once upon a time an economic system, which was patched out of the game, but the coins are still there as an artifact from that system. So here, I have a feeling Mountaincore is going to attempt to implement both a barter and a coin system. We have potatoes, we have coins, we have more potatoes. Like I said, I will change those to carrots, because we have a ton of them. We have an absolute ton of them. And you see I'm trying to sell more carrot. I'm selling a lot of potatoes. I'm selling a lot of potatoes. Carrots. Get rid of all the carrots. So this isn't even the crops, this is simply the seeds. When a trade caravan shows up, it will hitch up here, and what it will do is it will basically travel to these pallets. It will take the goods off of them, it will dump money on the ground, and after an indeterminate period of time, it will fill one of the buying pallet demands that I have. So I'm looking for a vegetable sack of sweet corn, and I'm looking for fun golem mushroom meat. And we did see a box of that around somewhere. I can't produce that. I can only get that from trade. I have no idea what the trade numbers are at the moment. I have no idea how many crappy seeds I need to sell to get some fun golem. It's an interesting system, and it's going to be evolved and improved and worked on. Here is the maple ledger table. If we take a look at it, a landmark for the trading depot. This does not currently have an in-game effect. So it might be an idea to move this inside, to keep this inside, because those coins will rust. And I overproduced some tanks at one stage, which I tried to get rid of, and at least one of them rusted. All of the rest of them seem to be gone from my stockpile. Very early on, very common for iron cauldrons to rust. A lot of things rusted in earlier versions of the game, and I think that may have been dialed back a bit. So rust is something that can occur. There's some meat in the tool stockpile. Rust is something that can happen, but I don't think wear and tear is there. So I don't think that these items will weaken and fall apart over time. I think rust is the only thing that can happen to them. So as long as you keep them in good condition, they are eternal. I think if you had rust and breakdown of tools, I think I would probably flip the table over. So here is Syrup Vaults in all of its glory, and if I press A to begin scrolling, it's very slow. Thankfully we can right click and move. Here's a seed stockpile. I had so many seeds at one stage that I started building seed vaults, like in Norway, trying to get rid of them. And here we have this big long corridor leading down here. There isn't much of a distance, as you can see on the minimap, but it is painful. It is painful to get dwarves over here. If I create a mining order, they will come over here, they will mine one stone and they will leave. However, I need to create some mining orders. Here is coal ore, and here is hematite. But what I'm going to do is orders, mine, and I'm going to order, we'll say all that. So I'm not too sure, is this a cavern? This is a cavern, or this was a cavern that we mined into. We found some spiders. This one was killed by one of the militia. Here is another cavern we found that I started mining around inside. And you can see that I've had to put up pillars, because if you mine out too large of an area, it will collapse. I'm not entirely too sure how big of an area that is, but you do have cave-ins in this game, and cave-ins at the moment are deadly. I have never seen a dwarf survive a cave-in. Now somebody is coming to mine out this area, and I should show quickly who is that going to be and how do we know who it might be. Here is the Settlers tab, and here are all of the citizens. We have a population of just 14, with beds for 22, and a military population of 6, so 20 in total. And we have 8 military beds. There's the total population. I have immigration turned on at the moment. However, if I got a big enough population wave, you could get 6 people in a population wave. You could get, I think 20 something is the largest that I got, that I've seen so far. Here are our dwarves. I'm not too sure is there an order to which they appear. And we can get a brief idea of their happiness. Under the effects of alcohol, that makes me happy as well. Slept in a comfortable bed. And the other major one worked in an enclosed room. I'm not too sure is that worked under a mountain, so inside in the mountain itself, or is that simply any enclosed area. So we'll say the trade post. When you start the game day one, generally as you're mining into the mountain, you generally just have all your rooms outside, so they're going to get a negative penalty from that. And to the right we can see the tasks that they can do. So Odin is a stonemason. He will prioritize stonemasonry over farming, and he will prioritize farming over hauling. At least that's how I understand it. They can do these 3 tasks. You could technically, you can't, have them do nothing. So Alvilda is a hauler, and we could give them a second task, either a leather worker or a fisher, a brewer, stonemason, miner, artisan. So artisan is going to make coins, and I think that's it at the moment actually. The woodcutter will cut wood, the weaver will take hemp and make linen, which at the moment, as far as I know, is only used for making beds. Dwarf Fortress, you need logs to make beds. In this, you need planks and linen. Work the farm. Carpenter, who is going to make things like some of the tools that you will use, and barrels. So barrels for storing water, fish barrels, and barrels for storing alcohol. The blacksmith is going to do your kind of ingot production. The chef is going to do anything in the kitchen. Miners will mine out areas. Stonemason is going to make blocks and crush ore. No idea what the brewer does. If anybody knows what the brewer does, please do tell me. So you can have up to 3 tasks assigned to each person. And then if we look at the military, I should say first of all that what you can do is click this tab to make somebody join the military. Uffy! Off to the army with you. So I don't know if it's possible to create more than one squad. The first time that you assign somebody to the military in that fashion, it will ask you to name the squad. I have named this squad the Squad. If you know, you know. So we'll say, yeah, off to the squad with you. And we can now come to the military tab. And here is Uffy. And we have the ability to assign their weapon. I have some battle axes and battle hammers made, which have varying degrees of quality. So here is a poor iron battle hammer, an awful tin battle hammer. We'll give him something better. How do we have battle axes? Well, okay, maybe not. For shields, we have a couple of poor iron shields, and I don't think we have gotten any armor made over the last while. So we do have one dwarf in armor. Underbelt, a neophyte miner, has arrived to mine some coal. And they have left behind some ore. And this has been assigned, I believe, to the raw minerals stockpile number 1. So somebody with the hauling trait is now going to come along and pick that up. I hope. And into the raw resources stockpile it goes. And as we can see, they are on the verge of a mental breakdown from the lack of sleep. So any distance that these guys need to cover is significant. This map, I'm playing on a medium-sized map, And getting from one end of the map to the other, there is some ore there that I've needed, and I've had them go to it and mine it and suffer breakdowns and die in the forest. So at the moment the game is a bit punishing in terms of getting from one area to another. We can see that that ore has been picked up. It's being taken to the import stockpile. And at some stage, somebody is going to come along and break that down into coal. And once they've made coal out of it, it can be turned into fuel, and once we've gotten metal bars, which we have plenty of, eventually armor will be made for my militia. Here they are, in a very dark corner of the fort. Here is their bedroom. I have some weapons racks in here as well, where they seem to be storing the weapons. There are archers' targets down here. I have not bothered to go and make anything for anyone to shoot. And here are some training dummies, and they basically just stand there and they whack these things. Gunilla is a novice axe woman. Not a novice axe dwarf. That's it. Literally unplayable. It's calling them axe men instead of axe dwarves. Literally unplayable. We have armor stands where they will store the armor. And this is basically their training. And they will just train. The military tab allows you to change their formations when they are in combat. And you can give them various different orders. This shows you the military dwarves. You can click on them individually to assign items to them. So Gunilla, as we can see at the moment, is wearing her axe on her face. And every once in a while we should see, there you go, Thor was wearing his shield the wrong way around. Here's somebody wearing their shield the wrong way around. That's kind of impressive, because they've, like, what are you holding it with? And at the moment, your military has two different functions. One is to attack enemies. So I showed you there was a spider in a cave that when we broke through to that cavern, I sent the militia in to kill them. The other thing they can do is attack invaders. So, much like Rimworld and Dwarf Fortress, invaders will appear from off-screen. Like in Rimworld, they will plan for a period of time, and then they will attack your fort is maybe the wrong way to put it. They will amble, they will saunter into your fort. On the Discord for Mountaincore, I have seen orcs make camp in the hallway of somebody's fort. The only experience I've had with them so far is they will rush past everyone in the fort, scaring them. They will get into the stockpile, they will fall asleep in there, in the raw resources stockpile, and then they will take maybe one or two things. So the combat system needs to be worked out at the moment. There's a lot of work to be done there. The other thing that the militia is for, I didn't plan to talk so long about orcs while just here on this screen. The other thing that the militia will do is they will attack animals. And if we wanted to eat some deer, I would attack and draw a line over them. I'm not going to do that because of how far away from the fort we are. So they would get over here and probably have a mental breakdown. And there would be my second militia wiped out. So there you go. This has been a look at a late game fort in Mountaincore. A lot of the videos that you're going to see are going to basically take you through the tutorial. They're going to start with the basics, getting the masonry up and running, getting the sawmill up and running. The tutorial is pretty bare bones at the moment, so it's only going to guide you through getting one or two rooms up and running. It's not really going to deal with the militia, or even, I don't think it even deals with metal production. And it can take a while to get anything done. I've pretty much played this game at the fastest speed. I'm on the slowest speed at the moment. But I think it's taken me about 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours to get to this stage. So 15 years in, about the same age as Siripvolts in Dwarf Fortress from some of my other videos. And this is what the fort looks like. I think this game has a lot of potential. I'm very impressed with the commitment of Rocket Jump to getting this game out to the people who kickstarted it 4 years ago. The reception from those people has been overwhelmingly positive on the Steam page and on the Discord channel for this game, which again I would encourage you to check out. And already suggestions are coming in, already a lot of bug reports, and the dev is getting to them pretty much instantaneously. I think there was 3 patches yesterday. There was 2 the day beforehand. I wouldn't be surprised if there's been a couple of patches since I started recording this video. And already the suggestions are coming in, and already the dev is thinking about and planning and looking at the next expansions. The game is bare-bone basics at the moment. You can get a militia up and running. Like I said, the combat isn't all that interesting or entertaining. The greatest risk is probably starvation as a result of the convoluted UI, or running out of water because you didn't realize that you were too far from the river. Those are probably the big threats to a fort at this stage, but more and more and more items are going to be added. I would strongly suggest that you check out the Discord, take a look at what Mountaincore has to offer. The game isn't in great shape at the moment. However, if you want to support the dev, and if you're in a position to do so, if you want to support the dev, if you want to support the future development of this game, a Dwarf Fortress Lite. We don't have multiple Z levels. You're not going to be able to go up and down. I don't think that's something that's going to be added. So it's a bit like Rimworld in that aspect. I don't think this is going to be as heavy or as lower intensive, we'll say, as something like Dwarf Fortress. So if this is the type of game that you want, a lighter version of Dwarf Fortress, and you're in a position to do so, do consider picking this up and supporting the dev. I think it's important to see a game like this made and succeed. And the dev has had ample opportunities to abandon this and leave it on the trash heap of history. Does anybody remember Clockwork Empires? Anyone remember Clockwork Empires? I remember Clockwork Empires. It haunts my dreams. The dreams I have when I go to sleep at night, just like all the dwarves in New Siripvolts. So I'll take this opportunity to sneak out and let them to their sleep. Thank you for joining me on this video. Like I said, check out the Discord below. The links into the Discord for more news and info on Mountaincore. And maybe think about supporting it if you can. Thank you all very much for joining me. And I will talk to you in future, probably in Siripvolts proper.